For my Global Experience project, I visited Amsterdam as I wanted to visit the Anne Frank Museum and compare her life to the life of today. I also wanted to find out the different cultures and experiences and the different way of life over there compared to the UK. So we queued 4 hours to visit the Anne Frank Museum, and when we got inside I'm not quite sure whether I thought it was worth waiting 4 hours for or not, but it was a pretty good experience all the same. We got inside and found that you couldn't take any photos, which sucked, but the experience was weird. The steps are extremely steep to climb up there, and I got bruises all on my shins from walking up and down there. And I also found myself wondering how 8 people managed to cope in such a small space for such a long amount of time. I mean, the fact that they had to sit still throughout the daytime in case anyone heard them or caught them while they were working down below, and also how dark and closed in it was, considering so many people lived in there. I mean, if that was me, I think I'd go absolutely insane, not being able to walk about if I wanted to, and go outside if I wanted to, and speak to whoever I wanted to. I mean, they weren't even allowed to use the toilet in the daytime because I couldn't flush it because of the people working downstairs. I mean, I don't know how they managed to keep themselves so unnoticed from the other people that worked there. And I also found myself wondering about the helpers. If I was in their position, would I be able to help someone? Would I be able to keep that secret to myself, or would it eat away at me and send me completely insane? I'd be so scared, and I think I'd give myself away because I think I'd end up acting really suspiciously. I don't think I'd be able to do it. And it made me realise how lucky we actually are to be able to live freely. We don't have to hide away in our homes, and we don't have to be ashamed of who we are. We don't have to keep secrets about who we are. We don't have to worry about the Nazis coming to get us. You know what I mean? And it must have been an absolute bizarre way of life, and it makes me so grateful for how more or less how easy we have it these days compared to Anne Frank. I mean, and she was so young as well. Must have been absolutely awful. And reading snippets of her diary made me just feel so sorry for her, and it made me feel sorry for her father as well, because he went through all that time not knowing what would happen to his daughters, and then he survived and then found out that his daughters were dead. That must have been absolutely horrific. I really feel sorry for the poor guy. It must have been awful. I feel sorry for the whole family and the other people that were living in there. It must have been absolutely awful. And then we went on to visit the Sex Museum, which was an absolutely bizarre experience. I mean, Amsterdam's so open about sex compared to the UK. We're to me, we're pretty prude about it. It's not really something that's spoke about very often. And they're extremely open. And they were they're giant seats shaped like penises, and you could sit on them, and there were sections dedicated to BDSM, and I was just whoa. You wouldn't find anything like that in England. I mean, it's something I've never witnessed before, and there were statues and models of people having sex in different positions, and people having sex in alleys, and it was absolutely crazy. And the pictures on the walls were just so descriptive, so graphic, and oh god, it was so strange. I really found it really strange, but it was so different to life over here. There was even a model of a bum on the wall, and it had eyes and eyelashes, and when you walk past it, it'd fart at you, it'd blow air out, and it'd giggle afterwards, which was just and there was a bowl in the middle of a room, and it was on a pedestal, and it was all penises outside, which made the shape of the bowl, and I was just whoa. Oh, it was so funny. And there was different machines, and you could pull a lever and it'd blow condoms up, and then they'd just stick up in the air and then just deflate once the air had gone back out of them. And I was that's something that you could look at in a museum. Museums, and to me, museums are a place where it's quiet, and everyone's walking around and looking at things, yet all you could hear was like people giggling and laughing, and found it hilarious that there was so much sex just everywhere. But oh, it was definitely a bizarre experience, 100% bizarre. But I really enjoyed it. But it made me think how, like, made me realise how different, like, Holland is compared to the UK, because they're just so open over there, and oh, it's just it's so weird. Like, I felt really immature in there because every time I saw something I'd start giggling, and the whole, like, they had like pictures of like anal fisting, and I was just I was gobsmacked. I was so taken aback. I was like, oh my god. And I couldn't even look at them because I felt so uncomfortable, and I just started laughing. Oh, it was crazy. It was so crazy. And they even had like a statue of Marilyn Monroe in there, and I think that was obviously because she was like classed as a sex symbol and things, so that did make sense. But it was such a crazy experience in there. So many giggles. I laughed pretty much the whole way around. I'm immature, I can't help it. But it really opened my eyes and showed me how different life is over there. Yeah, it was pretty weird. And then Amsterdam in general was just strange. I mean, there were so many people riding around on bikes, like literally more or less everyone travelled by a bike, like bicycles, like everyone was riding around on one. But there was just, like, even when the pedestrian crossings were on green, the citizens would just like carry on riding, like they didn't even seem to care if you got run over or something. I mean, I was walking down the street and I stopped, and before I had a chance to take a step back, I got elbowed in the face by a man on a bike, and he didn't even say sorry, and I was like, oh my god. And I couldn't figure out whether I was in the wrong or if he was in the wrong, but he didn't even ring a bell or anything, and he like knocked my sunglasses off my face, and I was like, oh my god. I couldn't, and like, I don't have to worry about that at home because not many people ride a bike, so that was kind of a culture shock. And they also, like, they have timers, like countdowns on their traffic lights to say like how long you have to cross the road, which is weird, because it's like, well, how am I going to cross the road in such a short amount of time? You end up running across the road and looking like an idiot. And there were trams everywhere as well, but people were just like walking on the tram lines, not even caring that a tram was like coming down the street. They were just like walking all willy-nilly, freely, just all over the place. And they drove on the other side of the road as well, which took me a while to get used to, because I was like used to like looking certain ways to cross the road, and then they were travelling on opposite sides of the road, and it was really bizarre, like confusing, because I was expecting a car to be driving like past me this way, but the cars were driving past me that way, and I was just so confused. It was really strange, and it took a while to get used to crossing the roads, because it's not like you could just quickly run across the road and not be run over, because there's more likely a tram, a bike or a car coming, and it was like, shit, I better run. And we visited the red light district as well, which isn't as bad as people make it out to be. I mean, it's weird because it's so known for sex and everything else, and there's a church like smack bang in the middle of it, and it's like, well, that's a contrast, like religion, you know, and then just bam, sex, like, why is it so close? I don't understand. And there were like ladies in the shops in underwear. It's not like seedy in the daytime at all. You just have like ladies in their underwear standing in shop windows, and then like you'll see a man, like we saw a man stumbling from out of one shop straight into another shop, and I was like, people actually just freely do this around here. Like, there's nothing like that where I live, like nothing at all. And I was like, oh wow. And everywhere you could smell it, all you could smell was like weed. The smell of weed was so strong, and people were just like smoking it freely in the streets, and I was like, that is bizarre, because obviously it's illegal in the UK, so to see people just willy-nilly walking down the road like smoking a joint, I was like, oh my god, you can actually do that here, which was another thing that you had to get used to, because the smell was just so strong. And the fact that there was like cafes that were dedicated to it, and everyone just seemed so chilled in the areas where like the cafes were, and they were freely smoking it, and everyone was just like, oh hey, just like walking, but they didn't seem to have a problem staring when you walk past. like, they would just stare, and I was like, it made me feel really uncomfortable. Whereas personally I think it's rude to stare at people. I don't know if that's just a personal thing, but I find that really strange how they just don't care. Like, they'll just stare at you completely, just like freely, just stare. Like, strange. Absolutely strange. And it's weird as well because they have canals, whereas we have canals in Tipton and like the surrounding areas, but they actually have like canal tours, like you can get on a boat on their canals and go for tours, whereas the canals in Tipton are just full of rubbish and people don't really want to go there. And if you do walk through there are a few people fishing there every now and then. It's just so strange, it's such a different way of life over there. It's bizarre. Like, I really enjoyed my experience. Like, it opened my eyes culturally to see how people, like, Holland isn't all that far away from England, like from the United Kingdom, and it was just weird to see how different life is from here to there, and how different things are perceived in the way of sex and drugs, and how their country just seems to be so chilled out, and people were just sitting around like drinking coffee, eating waffles, watching the bagpipe players, all different things like that, and it was such a different way of life. I mean, I absolutely loved it and I would definitely go back 100%. And it's made me more aware of things now. Like, obviously the different way of living. And I mean, we could probably take a leave out of there because they couldn't, like, Amsterdam just seems so relaxed and so chilled out. Whereas the UK, like, everyone seems to be like, I wouldn't say uptight, but they're not as open and so relaxed about things. So for me personally, I learned that everyone's just chilled. Everyone's just relaxed. And I feel like it opened my eyes more so. And allowed me to work in a different country as well. Like having to get used to people just walking in front of your pictures and not even caring that they're in the way. It made me have to like bite my tongue and become more patient, in a way of waiting to get the perfect shot when no one's head's in the way, or nobody's driving a car, or a boat isn't going past, or someone on a bike isn't going past. And I feel like that will definitely benefit me in the future as a photographer or whatever other career path I follow. So I definitely gained a lot from this trip, definitely, and the independence as well of getting on a plane and travelling somewhere else. Like, I was nervous at first, but then I didn't find travelling alone, like with no parents or whatever, I didn't find it intimidating. Like, the excitement was unreal, like I just couldn't wait. And I find that that will definitely help me become more independent in travelling and going places without having someone to hold my hand, and that's definitely going to benefit me in the future, as I'll have to travel to shoots and different things and different locations for different projects. So I feel like this has definitely benefited me greatly, culturally, opened my eyes to the world, and I would definitely 100% go back, and I would 100% recommend visiting Amsterdam to absolutely anyone. It was amazing and I loved it.